After you graduated from UC Berkeley some time back, you had met a spiritual leader who helped shape some of your views. You quit your first job. You had a number of odd jobs as a restaurant cook, as a landscaper, a number of other things. Can you tell us a little bit about what was going on at that time?
Heavens. At some point I'll write my memoirs. I've always been fascinated by the relationship of the invisible to the visible. My first job at age 5 was magician. Right? I charged 5 cents in Palestine, Texas, where I lived my first 5 years, on the sidewalk, and I did magic tricks. And I didn't know this initially, but as I looked through my life, I'd say everything I picked was always about something out there. So I was interested in the humanities, and initially in college, and then philosophy, and then the philosophers kind of bored me, but what was more interesting was the philosophers themselves. I studied history and history of thought, and then I sort of uncovered the idea of paradigms, in cultural paradigms, historical paradigms, national paradigms. I don't think we called it paradigms then, but it was more, realizing that there's something in terms of people's belief systems, in terms of what's going on in their psyche, that's affecting perception and performance. Why did all the art during the Baroque period look the same, have the same qualities to them, that were the same as the art and the music and the science and so forth? So I went to one of those wonderful little colleges that was one of those experimental colleges where we designed our own education, had no grades, independent study. And so I had the opportunity to start to explore a lot of that kind of stuff, which was fascinating to me. And of course, this was the 60s, so you know what the 60s was going to bring especially when you're far out little, funky college. And then Berkeley, graduate school in American intellectual history, in '68 in Berkeley. I mean, those heady times to be there. I think that's in history books now, in some way. And a lot of that was just exploration, called exploring consciousness, exploring whatever. And then I got bored with academia because it wasn't giving me enlightenment, and I wanted my own. So I hopped out of that and did martial arts, did a lot of spiritual explorations, meditative kind of things, because it wasn't really escape. It was really just exploration. I was just interested in the frontiers. So that stayed there. And then once I found some people and some information that I trusted, that became much more internal and much more quiet. I'd done a lot of things, but I didn't need to. That then became just more of a personal process and didn't have to be a big external thing. But then nobody was handing out jobs to people looking for internal enlightenment. And Rice Bowl and Cave was just not my lifestyle. I mean, good-looking women and good wine was just more interesting to me as lifestyle. But I said, well, somehow how could I sort of support all that? And that's when I started to just say, okay, well, let me go find friends. But I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, because frankly, the material world wasn't that important to me. It was the inner world that was much more important to me, because I'd had a lot of very real experiences there. And then once you actually taste some of that stuff, you go, out here, pretty easy to go, this ain't it. But at a certain point, I think in my own maturity, I realized, well, this ain't it, but I'm here, so there's a way to engage here that can still maintain the quality of what it's about without denigrating that, and then learn what this classroom is really all about and how to do it well. And that became sort of my motivator, what that was. But it wasn't about a particular job or industry or thing. And then, as I said earlier, so I just helped a lot of friends who knew what they wanted to do. So I helped a landscaper manage his company. I helped some friends start a restaurant, and I did all kinds of things. And that's when I began to uncover, oh, wait a minute. Instead of changing jobs when I get bored, they call people something and they pay them. They consultant, I are one. But then that got me on the path and very hungry to find what are good models that I can trust. So I didn't have to feel like, so scared to show up and not know if I'd know anything that would be of value. So that's what then attracted me to any of these tools and techniques that started to work with everybody in terms of what they wanted. Now that's probably a long version of a short version of a very long story.